Hey everybody, Detroit Free Press Sports writer Ryan Sang here with Reiner Saban, Sean Windsor. We're at the Citrus Bowl in Orlando where Michigan lost 35-16 to Alabama. I thought Michigan started the game off well. Offensive game plan was really good. Execution was good. Defense got a few stops, strung together, I think 3 consecutive possessions where they forced Alabama to punt. Michigan was up at halftime 16-14, and then Alabama scored 21 consecutive points to end the game. My biggest takeaway is that this really seemed like a case of deja vu. Like it felt very familiar. Just the overall ending to the season. This is the 4th consecutive season in which they've lost their final 2 games. Once again, they lose a bowl game in Florida, which is where they didn't want to end the season. They wanted to be in a playoff. They wanted to win a Big Ten. They didn't do that. It all just feels really familiar for Michigan football right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's kind of a rinse and repeat situation where, they win somewhere between 9 and 11 games, and, they lose to, the 2 games at the end of the season, the game to Ohio State in the bowl game, and they're 0-10 when they're underdogs under Harbaughs. So it's just kind of the same thing over and over again with them. They can't seem to get over the hump, and, and it's interesting because, again, Harbaugh's tried different things. He's brought in Gaddis, tried to change up the offense, brought in transfer quarterbacks, and it's the same thing over and over again.
Well, he's changed a lot of things.
Yeah.
He's changed most of his staff. He's changed offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. You mentioned the quarterback, the transfer quarterback. He started off with a transfer quarterback in Jake Rudick his first year, who still is probably the best quarterback he's had in the 5 years. He's had recruiting splashes where he announces on the stage. He's gone quiet and announced with a press release. He's battled on Twitter. He's not. He changed the way he's communicated with his players a couple of years ago. He's tried everything. What he hasn't had, though, to me, and I hate bagging on college kids because they're still are young. They're college players. To me, it's a little bit different than pros. He's not had the quarterback play that he had at San Diego State, at San Francisco, right?
Yeah, right.
He just hasn't. The guys that he developed, I mean, aside from Andrew Luck, who was going to get developed no matter who was coaching. You think about Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick, Josh Johnson out of San Diego State. He's not been able to do that here, and then combine that with enough, to me, speed and skill on the edges. He had a great offensive line this year, at least really good, the best he's had.
Sure.
And it probably saved the game from getting really ugly today. That's right.
Yeah,
But he just hasn't been able to do what I think a lot of people thought he was going to do when he got here 5 years ago in terms of that.
Yeah, and I think the one common denominator that we're seeing with most elite college football teams is they're getting elite quarterback play. I mean, you look at last year, the national title game was between Clemson and Alabama, Tua versus Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
This year it's going to be between Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence, and Justin Fields led Ohio State to a great season. Same thing with Jalen Hurts at Alabama. I mean, you just look across the nation. The best teams are getting the best quarterback play, and really elite quarterback play can differentiate your program even if you aren't recruiting at the level of Alabama or Ohio State. I look at a team like Oklahoma, right? Oklahoma doesn't recruit on the same stratosphere as those two programs,
especially defensively.
Right. But they've got an elite quarterback play, and they also play in the Big 12, which matters. It's not the Big 10. But they get elite quarterback play, and that matters a huge deal. They had Baker Mayfield, they had Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts. I mean, Michigan needs to find some way to find their version of Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Tua. I don't know what it is.
They do, and you're right. You can lift. I mean, look at some smaller schools when they have great years. It's usually because of a quarterback, and maybe they have a little speed on the edges, but you can really change everything in that way. Although, having said that, if you give Shea Patterson today the 4 guys that are running for Alabama, right, and started with Jerry Jeudy, oh my goodness, then maybe that's, I mean, but how often are you going to get a group of receivers like that? I mean, not that often, unless you're Ohio State or Alabama.
Right.
I guess the big question now is, with all this feeling really familiar, what can he do next to elevate this program? What can Jim Harbaugh do to change Michigan's trajectory and sort of snap them out of this, good but not good enough tier they currently find themselves in? It's a tough question because I don't think there are really any easy answers. He's really tried everything. And as we head to the offseason, what do you guys think he can do this time around to sort of maybe change things up?
I don't know. I think it's, again, like you said, I think, you're running out of answers. I think it comes down to just, players. I mean, it's always been about players. And, if he can, again, find a way to get better players in, across the board, he's kind of fallen behind. I think, Ohio State, again, these are the teams. There's only like 5 or 6 teams that really recruit at that highest level. And he's not been able to crack into that tier. and that's ultimately why they haven't been able to break through.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at Dabo Swinney, for example, at Clemson, right? He was able to compete with Alabama. I mean, when he first started competing with Alabama, he didn't have player for player equal talent.
No.
He had an all-world quarterback in Deshaun Watson. Now, that maybe that's a once in a generation kind of player, or at least once every 10-year kind of player. But Harbaugh hasn't come close to that kind of player at Michigan. No offense to the fine quarterback play he's gotten. And to me, that's really where it's got to start. Either that or guys on the outside that have to that need a little bit more speed, a little more ability to catch balls, contested balls. I mean, Harbaugh talks about this all the time, right? Think about this real quickly. Who in the NFL right now, from the last 4 years for Harbaugh, is playing at receiver and making a difference? Can you think of anybody? It just and people thought that was the strength of the team this year, and they're fine. Nico Collins is a good player, and will be a next level player. But is anybody else?
Right.
Yeah, I mean they're good, but then you look at Alabama's, right, or maybe
Ohio State. Watch what they
Yeah, they had a freshman make an absurd catch against Clemson in the playoff.
Yeah, and
stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just. To me, those are the two things that I can think of. I mean, because everything else has been solid. The defense has been good at times, really good at times.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's just, again, when you go against these elite teams with multiple playmakers, the defense does get a little bit exposed too. And so it's just, again, it comes down to overall roster, the overall state of the roster, and it's just not up to the level of these premier programs. It just isn't.
Right, you get exposed, but they expose each other too. It's just where the game is, right? I mean, LSU beat Alabama this year, 44-41 or something like that. So their defense is fine. Maybe it was a little down this year from last year, but their defense is fine. It's the offense scoring against teams like this.
Sure.
Now, whereas when we looked at the team entering last offseason, we said, the offense brought back a lot of returning talent, and the defense had to replace some starters. I think the scenario has kind of switched now. The defense is going to bring back most of their starters, pending maybe a couple decisions, one decision from Ambry Thomas. And the offense could look really different. I mean, you're talking about you're waiting on NFL decisions from Nico Collins, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Cesar Ruiz, and then you're losing 3 other starters on the offensive line. The quarterback's leaving. You're starting tight end Sean McCune's leaving.
Yeah.
So things could look very different. But I think the interesting thing about this is that, what will the offense look like after another offseason under Josh Gaddis' direction, Because I thought the offense grew a lot over these past 6-7 games. Well, can they take another leap forward just by becoming more familiar with this new scheme? I don't know. I mean, that's the big question. Like they're probably gonna lose some guys, and the offensive line play might take a step back because it was really good this year. But can another year in the system make up for those personnel losses, those changes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a work in progress, and it all goes back to again the quarterback position in a lot of ways, because they're going to be starting over basically with a new quarterback, whether it's Dylan McCaffrey or Joe Milton or even somebody else, a grad transfer. So I mean, they definitely have to get that guy up to speed earlier than they seem to get Shea, up to speed at the beginning of the season this year. I mean, that's the thing. Like they can't afford to have another month like they had this past September, where you're starting so slow and figuring things out as you go. I mean, college football doesn't allow for that, and so I mean, this isn't the NFL. When you get a preseason to work out some kinks and things, they need to have all that stuff figured out by then. And that's the question of whether they can. And so that's on Gaddis to get to work real hard with the personnel and make a quick decision maybe about who he wants to go with at quarterback.
They do play Washington on the road to start the season next year.
Right.
So that goes to your point about you have to be ready.
Yeah, right.
Whoever the quarterback is, they have to be ready for a tough game. And then I think early on in the season, they also play Wisconsin and Penn State at home.
Yeah.
Both of those teams should be pretty good next year. I think Penn State could be really good.
Right.
So, I mean, they need to get off to a better start so that they don't enter November already out of the Big Ten race like they did this season.
Sure.
It doesn't help when you're going into a Ohio State game and really you can't make the playoff.
Right.
You can't win a conference. I mean, you can still beat Ohio State, and that matters a lot, but, all your preseason goals are off the table by then.
Sure.
They have to avoid that next year.
Sure.
And that's, I guess that's obvious to say, but it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, line one with Michigan right now is just trying to get to the point where they can compete for that conference title that has been, elusive and has eluded them since 2004.
No, I'm with you. I mean, you can afford one loss early, right?
Yeah.
But really, I think they just need to survive next year again, and then maybe get to a quarterback that they have coming in the following year. I mean, you hate to say it, it's not that simple. Maybe they can surprise us.
Sure.
Maybe Joe Milton is the guy. I don't know. But you gotta. How good was Mac Jones today, for example?
Right.
I mean, he threw some nice balls. He wasn't great. Unless you're throwing to the 4 pros like he was, you got to have a difference maker at that spot. I mean, a real difference maker. So.
Right.
Anything else?
Yeah.
No, you kind of feel bad for Michigan fans at this point, but they're kind of stuck in purgatory.
Exactly, it's a weird spot because I mean he's lifted them out of that early 2010s rut that they were in. I mean they're clearly a very good program. They are a stable program. They've won 47 games in 5 years. A lot of teams would kill for the chance to have that type of success. The problem is, everyone expects more. No one expects just 47 wins with 0 Big Ten titles, 0 wins over Ohio State. People expect more, they just haven't been able to find a way to reach that upper rung of college football. And that's the hardest part. The climb from being bad to good. That's hard in itself, but going from good to great might be even more hard.
I agree. I mean, his best team is still his second year. He was here, right? With
in 2016.
I mean that was.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a loaded team, and those were mostly Brady Hoke's guys. And he came in and made a huge difference culturally in the way he coached and so on and so forth. He deserves a lot of credit for that. And to your point, Reiner, he's changed every year in some way. It's not for lack of trying in that way.
Yeah.
No easy answers to these hard questions. I guess a quick recap: they're 9-4. They lost Ohio State, Alabama, Wisconsin, Penn State. So that's 3 conference losses. The recruiting class is I think top 15, but not quite top 10. Maybe they'll land a couple more kids before February. I don't know, but it's not where it needs to be.
No.
And they're going to lose some guys personnel wise.
Sure.
So it's a murky offseason, and there could be coaching changes too, with the way the coaching carousel works these days.
Sure.
So we'll see another murky offseason, and really, I mean, everyone's wondering where do they go from here. So
we'll see.
Yeah.
Lots of questions to answer.
Definitely.
Thanks for following along. We'll have more work up at DetroitFreePress.com. Make sure to read all of our articles online or in print. Thanks for watching, and Happy New Year.